You were better at everything, every problem set, every quiz. You think in ways I have to work to get to, and you get there in half the time, and I didn't know what to do with that.
Don't add something to it that makes it more interesting than it was. It was cruelty. You were cruel to me because I threatened something you thought belonged to you. You acted like a child.
I didn't know how to articulate my feelings for you. I have never felt this way before. I am sorry I hurt you.
The first thing Dana Adeboye did when she arrived at Westbrook University was find the library, not the dorms, not the dining hall, not the freshman mixer that her roommate Tola had already texted her about 3 times with increasing use of exclamation points. The library. Because Dana had grown up in Brixton with a Nigerian mother who treated ignorance like a personal insult, and a father who had built an engineering firm from a single rented office in Streatham, and she had learned very early that the library was the one room in any building where what you came from stopped mattering and what you were made of started. She was 18 years old, British Nigerian, dark-skinned with deep brown eyes and natural hair that she wore in a large, defined twist-out that took 45 minutes on wash day and was worth every one of them. She was compact and upright, with the posture of someone who had been told to stand up straight exactly once and had decided it was good advice. She had a full academic scholarship to Westbrook's School of Engineering, a carry-on suitcase, 4 boxes of books, and absolutely no interest in being anything other than exactly what she was. She found a table by the window on the 3rd floor, spread out her course syllabus, and began reading. She did not notice, because she was not looking, the Korean boy 2 tables over who looked up when she sat down and did not look back at his work for 45 seconds. His name was Shin Woo-jin, 19 years old, 2nd year, mechanical engineering, from Seoul by way of a prep school in Connecticut that had sharpened his English and done nothing for his humility. He was the kind of good-looking that knew it, sharp jaw, dark eyes, the easy physical confidence of someone who had been told he was exceptional for so long that he had stopped questioning it. He was also, by his own reckoning, the best student in the mechanical engineering program. This was not entirely inaccurate. His GPA was a 3.9. His professor, Dr. Hamill, had told him in October of his first year that he had one of the most instinctively analytical minds he had encountered in a decade of teaching. Woo Jin had carried that sentence around like a stone in his pocket ever since, taking it out when he needed it. He would have kept carrying it, uncontested, indefinitely. And then Dana Adeboye sat down in his advanced engineering mechanics class on the first Tuesday of fall semester, asked a question in the 3rd minute that reframed the entire premise of the lecture, and Dr. Hamill said, with an expression of genuine delight that Woo Jin had previously believed was reserved exclusively for him, "Yes, exactly that. Where did that come from?" "Timoshenko. Beam theory. If the boundary conditions are wrong from the start, everything downstream inherits the error." "Precisely," Dr. Hamill said. "That is precisely the problem with the standard approach, and you've identified it in 3 minutes. Excellent." The lecture hall had 30 students in it. 29 of them were writing down what she had said. Woo Jin was not writing. He was looking at the side of her face with an expression he was not aware he was making, something tight and bright and deeply unsettled, the expression of someone whose stone has just been knocked out of their pocket. She did not look at him. She was already reading the next slide. It started with the notebook. Week 2, Tuesday lecture. Dana arrived, put her bag down, opened her notebook, the large grid paper one she used for engineering because the grid helped her diagram, and went to get a handout from the front. She came back, she sat down, she reached for her notebook. It was on the floor, pages bent. She picked it up, smoothed the pages, looked around. The students near her were looking at their own things. 2 seats to her right, Woo Jin was reading the course packet with complete absorption. She noted this and let it go because she was not the kind of person who accused without evidence. Week 3, she set her coffee down beside her at the start of lecture. 12 minutes in, she reached for it. It was on its side, the lid somehow open, coffee pooling across the floor, her bag strap soaked. Woo Jin, 2 seats right, was taking notes. Week 4, she was in the hallway outside the engineering building talking to her classmate Marcus about the problem set, her backpack open at her feet as she searched for her calculator. She felt it before she understood it, a deliberate shoulder check, the specific kind that is not an accident, that has intention behind it, and her backpack tipped and the contents scattered across the hallway floor, her notes, her calculator, her pencil case, everything. She straightened up. Woo Jin walked past without stopping or looking back, hands in his pockets, the back of his dark head perfectly composed. Marcus stared after him. Did he just— Yes, Dana said. Her voice was flat and controlled. She crouched and collected her things with the methodical calm of someone who is filing information rather than reacting to it. She was not going to react. Reaction was what he wanted, and she was not giving him what he wanted. What she was going to do was be better than him in every academic context available, which she had apparently already started doing without trying, and which she now intended to do with full and deliberate effort. The hair incident happened in week 5, and it was the one that caused her. She was in the seminar room for their engineering lab section, standing at the whiteboard working through a stress analysis problem that Dr. Hamill had put to the group. Her twist out was down that day, full and large, the kind of hair that took up space with complete unapologetic authority. She was mid-equation when she felt it, fingers in her hair, a sharp, deliberate pull from behind, hard enough to jerk her head back. She spun around. Woo Jin was in the front row, pen in hand, looking at his notebook. The lab section had 12 students. 3 of them had seen it. She could tell by the quality of the silence, sudden and loaded, the silence of people who have witnessed something and are deciding what to do about having witnessed it. Dana stood at the whiteboard for exactly 3 seconds, her eyes on Woo Jin, her jaw set, her hand not going to her head because her scalp was stinging, because she was not going to give him that either. Then she turned back to the whiteboard and finished the equation. Her handwriting did not waver. She got the answer right. She sat down. Afterward, her classmate Yemi, who had seen, caught her arm in the hallway. "Dana, that was—" "I know," Dana said. "You should report it." "I know," Dana said. She went to the bathroom and stood at the sink and looked at herself in the mirror for a long time, not crying. She had not come to Westbrook on a full scholarship from Brixton to cry in a bathroom because a boy with a fragile ego and too much to prove had put his hands in her hair. What she felt was something cleaner and colder than tears, the specific feeling of a line being crossed that cannot be uncrossed, of something being decided. She took out her phone. She documented everything she could remember, dates, incidents, the 3 witnesses in the lab. She sent it to herself in an email with the subject line, "Record." Then she washed her hands and went to her next class and got 100 on the quiz. The thing about Woo Jin, the thing he would not have admitted to anyone, including himself, was that he could not stop watching her work. It was the source of everything, and he could not have explained it to a single living person without it sounding insane, because it was insane, because the logical response to watching someone do something extraordinary was not to become cruel, and it was not jealousy, and it was not whatever this was, this complicated, unbearable thing that had been sitting in his chest since the first Tuesday of the semester, when she had identified the boundary condition error in 3 minutes, and Dr. Hamill had looked at her the way he used to look at Woo Jin. He had been the best. He had worked for it. He had given up things for it. Social things, easy things, the comfortable middle of the pack. Because being the best was the only thing he knew how to be. The stone in his pocket, the one thing that was his. And she had walked in on the first day and sat down and taken it from him without even knowing she was doing it, without effort, without strategy, just by being what she was, which was the thing he could not say, the thing that sat underneath all the rest of it like a structural fault, extraordinary. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He was not without self-awareness. He was simply without the resources at 19 to translate what he felt into anything else than cruelty, because cruelty was the only language available to him for something he didn't have a name for. This did not excuse it. He would understand that later. For now, he knocked over her coffee and told himself it was about the grade. The confrontation in week 7 was not planned. It was 11 at night, and the engineering computer lab was empty, except for Dana, who was running a simulation for the design project, and Wu Jin, who came in 20 minutes after her and set up at the station across the room without acknowledging her existence. They worked in the loaded silence of two people pretending the other is not there, which requires more energy than actual interaction, and both of them knew it. At some point, her simulation returned an error. She worked through it systematically, backtracking the code, finding the variable that had propagated the wrong value through 4 subsequent functions. When she found it, she made a small sound of satisfaction, quiet, involuntary, the sound of a problem solved. "Boundary condition error," Wu Jin said from across the room. She went still. "In the simulation," he said. He was not looking at her. He was looking at his own screen. "Variable inheritance, same principle as the lecture. You fixed it." She turned in her chair to look at him fully. "Did you just—" "It was a good catch," he said, still looking at his screen. The computer lab hummed. The fluorescent light was flat and uninflected. "Wu Jin," she said. He looked up. The expression on his face in the flat lab light was not the composed, indifferent expression she had cataloged. Something underneath it was showing. She didn't have a name for it yet. "What are you doing?" she said. "I have a project to finish." "You knocked my notebook on the floor. You put my coffee on its side. You shoved my bag in the hallway." Her voice was level and precise, the voice she used for lab reports, for things that needed to be stated exactly. "You pulled my hair." The last one landed in the room like something physical. He said nothing. "In front of 12 people, you put your hands in my hair and you pulled it, and you thought that was something you were allowed to do. Dana, I have it documented. Dates, incidents, witnesses. I haven't filed it yet. I want to understand something first." He was looking at her. His face was, she cataloged it, tight, complicated, not quite guilty and not quite defensive, something worse than either. The face of someone who has been confronted with the clearest possible reflection of themselves and cannot look away from it. "Why?" she said. "That's all. Just tell me why." The computer lab was very quiet. He opened his mouth, closed it. She watched him go through 3 versions of an answer and discard all of them. "You came in on the first day," he said finally. His voice was different from the usual, lower, less managed. "And you, the boundary condition thing, in 3 minutes. Hamill looked at you like—" He stopped. "Like what?" she said. "Like he used to look at me." The fluorescent light hummed. "So," Dana said slowly, "I was better at something than you." "You were better at everything," he said, and it came out like it had been pulled from him against his will, raw and graceless, and entirely without the usual composure. "Every problem set, every quiz. You think in ways I have to work to get to, and you get there in half the time, and I couldn't—" He stopped again. "I didn't know what to do with that." "So you pulled my hair," she said. "I know. You knocked my things over, you walked into me in the hallway, you sat 2 seats away from me every Tuesday and made my life smaller because I was smarter than you and you couldn't cope with it." "Yes," he said, "just that, not defending it." She looked at him for a long moment, then she laughed, not the warm kind, the cold, precise kind, the kind that is the sound of something being seen exactly. "You know what that is. That's not complicated. That's just a boy who can't stand a girl being better than him. I've met that before. I grew up meeting that. I expected better from a university in America, but apparently some things travel. It wasn't just that." "Don't," she said. "Dana," she said again, sharper, "don't add something to it that makes it more interesting than it was. It was cruelty. You were cruel to me because I threatened something you thought belonged to you. You acted like a child. That's the whole story." "It's not the whole story," he said, and his voice had changed, the composure entirely gone now, something underneath it that was urgent and unmanaged and slightly desperate. He stood up from the workstation. He was taller than her, and he took a step toward her, and then stopped deliberately, because she could see that he was aware of his own size and what it meant, and what he had already done with proximity that he had not been entitled to. He stayed where he was. That, she noted, meant something. "Then what's the rest of it?" she said. Her voice was even. Her arms were crossed. She was not moving. He looked at her with the expression she had not seen before, the full version of whatever had been showing underneath the surface for 7 weeks, unmanaged and exposed under the flat fluorescent light. It was not a comfortable expression. It was the expression of someone who has run out of every other option and is standing in front of the only true thing left. "I couldn't stop watching you work," he said, "from the first day. I couldn't." He pressed his hand flat over his mouth for a second, the gesture of someone physically stopping themselves from saying something wrong, and then dropped it. "Every time you solved something, I wanted to know how you got there. Every time you made an argument in seminar, I wanted to argue back, not because you were wrong, but because arguing with you was the only way I could be near it, be near the way your mind works. I didn't know what that was. I still don't. I just know that it was there before the cruelty, and it's what's underneath all of it. And I am not—" His voice cracked, just barely. "I am not saying that to excuse what I did. I'm saying it because you asked for the whole story, and that's the part I've never said out loud. I think I developed feelings for you." The computer lab held its silence. Dana Adeboye uncrossed her arms. She stood up from her chair and walked toward him and stopped 3 feet away and looked up at him with the steady, clear, unflinching expression of a girl from Brixton who had learned very early to look at things precisely as they were. "Wu Jin," she said. "Yes. Look at me." He looked at her. "What you just told me," she said, "is that you had feelings you didn't understand, and instead of sitting with that discomfort like a grown person, you took it out on me, on my body, on my work, on my peace. You made my Tuesday mornings something I had to brace for. You made me document incidents in an email with the subject line, 'record,' because I needed evidence of my own experience. You did that. Your feelings did not do that. You did that." He said nothing. He was taking it. She could see that he was taking it, not performing contrition, just receiving it, which is what she needed him to do. "I don't care why you watched me work. I don't care what was underneath it. I care that when you didn't know what to do with something you felt, your first instinct was to make me smaller. That tells me something about you that a confession doesn't fix." "I know," he said. His voice was quiet. "I know that." "Do you?" she said. "Because what I need you to understand, what I need you to actually understand and not just say, is that what you did was not complicated. It was not a love language. It was not a boy who didn't know how to say something. It was harassment. You put your hands in my hair. That is not how you tell someone you find them remarkable. That is how you tell someone that you think you have the right to their body when your feelings become inconvenient." The word hung in the air between them. His jaw tightened. His eyes were bright in a way that was not anger, something more complicated than anger, something that was the feeling of deserving what you're receiving and having to stand still for it. "You're right," he said. "I know I am," she said. "I'm sorry," he said. And then, because apparently he had decided that the only currency left to him was complete honesty, "I'm sorry in the way that knows sorry isn't enough. I'm not asking you to do anything with it. I just need you to have it." Dana looked at him for a long time. The simulation was still running on her screen behind her, the progress bar patient and indifferent. "Here is what I want you to do," she said finally. "I want you to go home tonight and think about what kind of person responds to admiration with cruelty, not as self-punishment, as actual examination, because the version of you that did those things is the version you need to be responsible for changing, not for me, for the next person you encounter who is better than you at something, because there will be one, there always is." He nodded. Once, the nod of someone receiving an instruction they intend to follow. "And Wu Jin, yes, I am going to be the best student in this program. I was going to do that anyway, but now I'm going to do it while you watch, and every time Dr. Hamill says exactly that in response to something I've said, I want you to remember that you could have been the person sitting next to me enjoying it, instead of the person who made it harder. That could have been different. You made it this." She turned back to her workstation. She sat down. She looked at her simulation, which had completed while they were talking, the results clean and correct on the screen. Behind her, she heard him sit back down at his station. They worked in silence for another hour. It was a different silence than before, not the loaded, pretending silence, but something that had been cleared, the silence of a room after a window has been opened. At midnight, she saved her work and packed her bag. She stood up. "Dana," he said. She stopped, did not turn around. "The design project, the tolerancing problem on Section 3. Your approach is right, but there's a manufacturing constraint you haven't accounted for. It'll fail at the prototype stage." A pause. "I noticed it 2 weeks ago. I should have said something." She stood still. "The constraint is in the materials appendix, page 47. It's easy to miss." She picked up her bag. "Thank you," she said. 2 words, level, neither warm nor cold, an acknowledgement, nothing more. She walked to the door. "I am going to be different," he said, quietly, not to her, almost, to the room, to himself. "I want you to know I mean that." She paused at the door with her hand on the frame. She did not turn around. She stood there for 3 seconds, which was the length of time it takes to decide whether to say the thing or leave it. "Page 47. I'll check it tonight." She left. Outside, the Westbrook campus was dark and cool, the kind of American college night that smells like cut grass and possibility. She walked across the quad with her bag on her shoulder and her twist out catching the lamplight and the simulation results correct on her laptop, and the truth told, all of it, the whole thing said out loud in a fluorescent room to a boy who needed to hear every word. She took out her phone. She opened the email with the subject line, "Record." She looked at it for a moment. She did not delete it. She was not ready to delete it. Maybe she would be later, and maybe she wouldn't, and both of those were fine. She put her phone back in her pocket and walked toward her dorm. The semester moved forward the way semesters do, relentlessly, full of deadlines, indifferent to personal reckonings. Wu Jin did not speak to her in seminar for 2 weeks after the computer lab. He did not sit 2 seats to her right. He moved to the back row, which she noticed and did not comment on. He did not interrupt her arguments. When she made a point, he wrote something in his notebook, and she could not see what it was, and she told herself she was not curious. She was a little curious. She got 100 on the midterm. He got a 96, which was the highest grade she had ever seen him receive that was not the highest grade in the room. She heard about it from Marcus, who told her with the specific relish of someone reporting sports results. She felt nothing complicated about it. She felt the clean, straightforward satisfaction of work rewarded, which was what she had always felt and what no one had ever been able to take from her, not even 7 weeks of Tuesday mornings that had to be braced for. In week 10, he held the door of the engineering building open for her. She walked through without stopping. He did not make it mean anything, neither did she, but she was aware of it. In week 11, he left a note on her workstation in the computer lab. She came in at 9 and it was there, folded, her name on the outside in his handwriting, which was precise and slightly architectural, the handwriting of someone who thinks in structures. She opened it. Page 23 of the design appendix, secondary thermal constraint. It's not in the syllabus, but Hamill will look for it in the final submission. I found it last year. W. She read it twice, then she turned it over and wrote on the back, noted. The tolerancing fix on section 3 worked. D. She left it on his workstation. She did not examine what it felt like to write the D. She had pages 47 to check and a final submission to prepare, and a GPA to maintain, and she was not going to examine it. She examined it slightly walking home, in the private and non-binding way of someone who is not ready to make anything of something, but has acknowledged to themselves that the something exists. The final project presentations were in week 14, the last Thursday before finals, the engineering auditorium full of faculty and students. Dana presented third. Her project was a structural optimization model for load-bearing systems in high seismic zones, the culmination of 14 weeks of work that she had built from the boundary condition insight of the very first lecture, outward in every direction. She stood at the front of the auditorium in her burgundy blazer and her twist out and her posture, and she presented for 12 minutes with the specific calm authority of someone who knows the work is right and knows they know it. When she finished, Dr. Hamill asked 4 questions. She answered all 4. On the 4th, which was the hardest, she paused for 2 seconds, worked through it visibly and without apology, and gave an answer that was better than the one she had prepared. The auditorium applauded. She walked back to her seat. Marcus was beaming. Tola, who had come to watch, had her hands pressed together. On the other side of the auditorium, in the row designated for second years, Woo Jin was not applauding. He was looking at her with the expression she had last seen in the computer lab, open and unguarded and full of something that had stopped pretending to be something else. He was not trying to manage it. He let her see it. She held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then she sat down and looked at the front of the auditorium where the next presenter was setting up. Her heart was doing something she was not going to dignify with attention right now. After the presentations, the engineering atrium, crowded and loud. She was with Marcus and Tola when she felt the particular awareness of someone approaching with intention. She turned. Woo Jin stopped 2 feet from her. He had his hands in his pockets. His face was the new version, the one without the management. "Can I talk to you?" he said, "for a minute?" Marcus looked between them. Tola looked between them. Zara did the social calculus of a good roommate and said, "We'll get drinks," and steered Marcus away before he could say whatever he was about to say. Dana looked at Woo Jin. "Your presentation, the seismic model, the way you extended the boundary condition principle across the whole system, that was—" He stopped, started again. "I've been in this program for 2 years. That was the best work I've seen presented in this auditorium." "Thank you," she said, level, neither warm nor cold. "I mean it. I need you to know I mean it, because I have not always—" He pressed his mouth to his hand, dropped it. I have not been someone whose opinions you should take at face value, and I know that, and I'm saying it anyway because it's true, and because— He stopped. Woojin, she said, I think about the computer lab every day. What you said, every word of it. I wrote it down when I got home because I needed to have it somewhere I could look at it. The version of me that did those things, I've been looking at him, like you said, actually looking, not as punishment, as I needed to understand how I got there so I don't go there again. He looked at her steadily. I'm telling you this because I don't want something from it. I'm telling you because you deserve to know that what you said mattered, that it did something. Dana looked at him in the crowded atrium, the noise of their department around them, the particular charged air of a semester ending and things being completed or left incomplete. That's good, she said carefully. I mean that. That's genuinely good. I know I don't get to— He stopped, looked at the floor for a moment, looked back up. I know there's no version of this where I say something and it balances what I did. I know the math doesn't work like that. I'm not trying to make the math work. His voice was lower now, steady but not without effort. When I saw your presentation today and Hamill looked at you and the whole room— He exhaled. I wanted to be the person who got to tell you it was extraordinary, and I'm not that person. I made sure I wasn't that person, and I have to live with that. The atrium noise moved around them. She looked at him for a long moment. Outside the glass doors, the December evening was doing its quiet thing, the campus half empty, the cold pressing in at the edge. Dana Adeboye, who had come from Brixton to Westbrook on a full scholarship and had spent 14 weeks being made smaller by someone who couldn't cope with her size, stood in the engineering atrium and looked at Shin Woo-jin and felt several things in the same moment, which was not simple and which she was not going to pretend was simple. The problem was that she could see it. That was the inconvenient part. She could see the difference between the boy who had knocked her notebook to the floor in week 2 and the one standing in front of her now with his hands in his pockets and nothing left to hide behind. She had always been good at seeing things precisely as they were. Right now, that ability was not entirely convenient. You're not that person yet, she said. He looked up. Yet is not a promise, she said immediately. I'm not offering you anything I haven't decided to offer, but I'm also not going to stand here and pretend I haven't watched you be different for the last 7 weeks. I notice things. It's what I do, and I've noticed. He was very still, the kind of still that is not waiting for something good, but is trying not to want it too much. The notes, page 47, page 23, the thermal constraint, those were not nothing. She stopped, chose the true thing, because she always chose the true thing, even when it was inconvenient. Those were the actions of someone paying attention in the right direction. I see the difference between before and now. I'm not blind to it, and I'm not going to pretend I am just to protect myself. Dana, I'm not finished, she said. He closed his mouth. I'm not forgiving you today. Forgiveness is something I'll come to in my own time, on my own terms, because I need it to be real and not just a response to a good speech in an atrium. What happened in that lab section, what you did to my hair, I need you to understand that I still carry that. It doesn't go away because you left notes under my door and looked sorry about it. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it was not entirely steady, and she let him hear that, because she was not going to perform being unmoved when she was not entirely unmoved. You don't get to unknow that you did that. I know. I don't want to unknow it. I want to be accountable to it. Here's what I know, she said finally. I know that the version of you that showed up in week 10 and held the door and left notes and stayed in the back row without making me feel watched, that version is closer to someone I could be in the same room with without bracing. That's real. I'm acknowledging it. She paused. I'm also acknowledging that one semester of doing better is not the same thing as being different. Those are not the same thing. No, they're not. So, she said, and then she did something she had not planned to do, which was look at him, really look, the full unguarded version of looking she usually kept for problems worth solving, and say, January, we have the same advanced dynamics module in the spring. I looked at the roster. Something shifted in his expression, fractional, careful. I know, he said. I saw your name. If you show up in January and you are the version of yourself that left the notes and not the version that knocked my notebook on the floor, she stopped. The corner of her mouth moved, not a full smile, the beginning of one, controlled and deliberate and entirely hers. Then we'll see. He looked at her. We'll see, he repeated, like he was making sure he had heard it correctly. That's all I'm giving you. Don't make it more than it is. I won't, he said, but the expression on his face was the full, unmanaged version, warm and careful, and quietly lit from within, and she saw it, and she let herself see it for exactly 2 seconds before she picked up her bag. The presentation was extraordinary, he said, quietly, not performing it, just stating it the way he stated things he was certain of. You should know that. Whatever else is true, you should know that. She felt it land somewhere it wasn't supposed to land yet, and she filed that information away without examining it, because she was Dana Adeboye, and she did things in the right order. And the right order was not here, not yet, not in a crowded atrium in December, with the reckoning still warm in the room. Good night, Woojin, she said. Good night, Dana, he said. She walked toward the atrium doors, toward Tola and Marcus and the cold December evening. She did not look back. She was not ready to look back. But at the door, she paused, just 1 second, her hand on the glass, and she was aware, with the specific awareness of someone who notices things and cannot stop noticing them, that he was still watching her, that he had not moved, that he was standing in the middle of the engineering atrium with his hands in his pockets, watching her leave with the expression of a person who has been handed something small and fragile and has decided to be extraordinarily careful with it. She pushed through the door into the cold. Tola materialized at her elbow instantly. Okay, I saw all of that. I saw all of that. Who is he? Why does he look at you like that? Dana. It's complicated, Dana said. She started walking. I have time, Tola said, matching her stride. I have all the time in the world. Start from the beginning. Dana thought about the first Tuesday and the boundary condition error, the notebook on the floor, the coffee on its side, the hallway, her hair, the computer lab at 11 at night, and everything that had been said there, every word of it, and then page 47 and page 23, and 12 minutes in the auditorium, and Hamill's fourth question, and 2 seconds of eye contact across a crowded room, and 1 second at a glass door that she was not ready to examine. It starts badly, she said. I need you to know it starts really badly. Okay, Tola said. And it's not finished. I don't know what it is yet. I know what it was, and I know it's different now, and I don't know what comes after different. I'm still... She stopped walking for a moment, looked at the December sky, gray and wide above the Westbrook campus. I'm still deciding what I'm willing to do with what comes after different. Tola was quiet for a moment, which was rare and meant she was taking it seriously. But there's something, after the different, there's something you're deciding about. Dana started walking again. Her twist out caught the lamplight as she moved through it, the campus quiet and cold around them. There might be something, she said. That's all I'm saying. There might be. She did not examine the particular warmth that had settled somewhere in her chest, uninvited and without permission, and with very poor timing. She would examine it later, in January maybe, when she knew whether it was real or just the feeling of someone finally being seen by the person who most aggressively refused to see her, which were 2 entirely different things, and she was smart enough to know the difference. She was Dana Adeboye. She did things in the right order. January was coming. She had time to figure out which one it was. If you made it this far, you already know this story is just getting started. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next between Dana and Woojin, because trust me, it only gets more interesting from here. Let us know what scene was your favorite part, your favorite quote perhaps, and where you are watching from. See you in the next one.